Hey tea heads, this is Don from MADLY. I don't know where to begin with this tea. This tea is a completely nuts tea. It's a tea that we've been working on for over a year now. So let me give you a brief background on this tea. So it all started with our bad tea, bizarrely aged Dianhong, one of our candidates for last year's Tea of the Year. It was, or is, because it's still available, a Dianhong, which means a black tea from Yunnan, which tasted fermented, even though it supposedly wasn't, but it must have been stored in a particular way in order for it to bring about some flavors of fermentation. So it had an almost alcoholic, almost Gushu PuErh style quality or character to it. We really loved that tea, and it started off our exploration into what other kinds of fermentation we could do with tea. So what I did is I sent a sample of the bad tea to one of my friends in Yunnan in China and said, hey, what do you think of this tea? And can we do something similar, or can we start to play around with fermentation a little bit? So this friend of mine, who is deep in the PuErh game, his whole family has been involved in PuErh for many generations. And he tasted it. He said it tasted like, as I suspected, Dianhong, which had been stored in a particular environment at a low oxygen and higher humidity to bring about some fermentation. And he said we can certainly experiment in the future with black teas. But he said, you caught me at exactly the right time, because I am sitting on a small amount of Bulang Gushu raw PuErh, estimated age 200-year-old tea trees, and I'm thinking of fermenting them in a bit of a wacky way. And I said, well, tell me more. And he said, I'm thinking of fermenting them in barrels instead of on the floors of warehouses, fermenting them in barrels. And I said, I'm definitely interested in tasting that. And he said, I'm also thinking of, instead of using water, so for those of you who don't know, heicha or shucha, so fermented tea, is usually made by piling up the raw leaves and pouring over about 30% water and allowing that water and the heat to stimulate microbial activity over the period of a month to 2 months. And that's the fermentation process or ripening process overall. Obviously, it's a little bit more complicated than that. There are many other steps, but that's the broad picture. And he said, instead of using water, I am thinking of using Black Tea Kombucha. My mind just went, so you are taking a Gushu raw PuErh, you are putting them in barrels to ferment, and you are using a Black Tea Kombucha instead of water. I am definitely signing up for this experiment. I want in. And so we went ahead. And you know, we didn't know what to expect. We went for a lighter fermentation, so a month, to really sort of bring about the character of the raw tea and to really understand the effect that the kombucha has on the ripening process. And for those of you who don't know, kombucha is a fermented tea, so it's a fermented black tea usually, although you can use other teas and you can certainly use other herbs as well. I've done videos about kombucha. I'll put links in the description below so you can learn more about kombucha. But many people may not realize that kombucha was invented in China, and so China has many hundreds, probably thousands of years of experience fermenting black tea kombucha. And so they use this kombucha to ferment this tea. Do you want to see it? This is the result of our experimentation, a totally unique tea. This is Playground Rendezvous. Let's just take a look at this cover by Celine, going for a very different style intentionally because of the experimental nature of this tea. We've gone for a graphic novel style, a little bit film noir style. We've got the panda here playing at night with this glam lady at a city playground at night. The two of them, a surreal and, I think, beautiful image of a rendezvous at night in a city, the playground rendezvous. And the reason why we've included a person in this, usually our PuErh is only animals on the front cover, is because of the fact that black tea has now been brought into play here. So this is black tea used to make a heicha, or a black fermented tea, so double black, hence the graphic novel, the film noir style. I hope that you enjoy this cover. I personally absolutely love this unique style that Celine took a long time really sort of researching and working out how to bring about this graphic novel style and this very sort of contrasty one color, just black and white. The Playground Rendezvous. Let's open it up. I want to show it to you, I'll scope it to you, and then we're going to dive into a tasting. And I will say, of course, I have tasted this tea through the process. I've tasted the tea fresh out of the barrels, and I've tasted the smell coming off this tea. I cannot tell you how excited I am to launch this tea. This has been sort of this fizzy excitement in the back of my head for the past year. I've been wanting to talk about it with everybody, but I've kept stumm, I've kept quiet on it. Look at those leaves. This is the Playground Rendezvous. Scoping on this tea. This is season spring 2019, so it was picked in 2019, and then it was fermented in barrels with Black Tea Kombucha in late 2020, so November time 2020, and it was pressed for us in April this year, 2021. The cultivar is the Daiyajong variety. The origin is from Bulang in Yunnan in China. The picking and the processing, as you can see, a lot of buds and up to 3 leaves. This is Gushu material, ancient tea tree material, which in of itself is a very rare thing to find, Gushu fermented tea. So estimated age around 200 years. So just at the sort of starting point of Gushu, elevation on this is around 1,700 meters. You can see the color of this tea, beautiful golden and copper buds, lots of buds, and the color of the leaves are, yes, fermented, clearly a heicha, clearly Gushu PuErh, but I hope that you notice it's a slight shade lighter, a little bit more sort of maroons and cherry reds in the color of this leaf. I think it looks beautiful. So slightly lighter fermented. Well, I would say it's on the lighter side of the fermentation compared when you sort of compare it with all of Gushu PuErh. A lot of Gushu PuErh is a month to 2 months. This is on the lighter side. I think that that's really nice. And I'm sort of edging more and more towards lighter infusions just to sort of really highlight the taste of the terroir of the area. But obviously here as well, we wanted to really understand the effect of the Black Tea Kombucha and the barrels on this tea. I think that's enough, but I'll just take a little bit more just in case. I can always put it back. Breaks up lovely, good compression. Gonna put that to the side, and as always, the luxury at my place, I have another cake here for us to admire. Okay, let's turn this kettle on and let's break up these leaves. The smell coming off this tea from the dry leaf, if you get your hands on one of these cakes, you know, you don't even have to open it, just smell through the wrapper. The smell is intoxicating. When I first tasted the sample after the fermentation, I was jumping around for days afterwards, just with heady excitement. I think I couldn't resist and I posted something on Instagram, but I kept it quite quiet. Some people guessed that this was somehow related to the bizarrely aged Dianhong, which we still have in stock and is a mighty black tea, still one of my favorites. And different to this, it's worth saying. But it's great how one part of the tea journey sort of leads into another. It's just joining this thread between all the different experiences. And when my friend, who, as I said, is deep in the PuErh game, said that he was experimenting, I jumped on board. Right. I've got this Shui pot here. as I said, I have tasted this tea on many occasions. It's been about a month since I've tasted it, so I'm coming at this fresh. And what is remarkable actually is normally with ripe pu'er, you want to leave it a year or two for that wet piling process to evaporate, that smell, that wodoi smell to evaporate. But due to the small batch nature of this fermentation process, due to the fact that it's been sort of looked after and taken care of, and it isn't sort of large batch with lots of wodoi smell, and possibly due to the fact that it's, you know, the bizarreness of the style in wooden casks and with Black Tea Kombucha, it really doesn't have any wodoi at all. I mean, it's amazingly clean smelling considering that it was fermented a year ago. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna brew dry style here. That's my eyeball of how much should go in, and we normally recommend about 7 grams per 100 ml. Okay, here we go, everybody. My first description, at least to you, of Playground Rendezvous, our barrel fermented Gushu PuErh in Black Tea Kombucha. Not easy to say that title. Here we go. All I'm going to say is, if you love HR, if you love Gushu PuErh, you need to experience this tea, because it is like everything you expect from a Shui and then something radically different. I'm getting lots of muscovado sugar. Sweetness is going to be a theme that runs through this, this video. It's so sweet. Muscovado sugar. I'm getting those barrels, those oak casks. I'm getting bourbons. I'm getting aged rums, dark rums. I'm getting maple syrup. I'm getting, in the UK, we have something called rich tea biscuits, a very simple biscuit, but it has a biscuity quality too. I'm getting licorice. I'm getting a plethora of different spices, which we'll dive into as we go further in this tea. It makes your mouth water. It is just a stunning smell. I'm gonna, as I say, brew dry style, so the cat gets the full gong fu vessel here, right in the middle. I've also got a glass gongdabe because I want to show you the color of the liquor as well. So we've got 99-degree water. I'm going to give it a quick rinse. As I said, remarkable that there is literally no wodoi, no wet stored smell on this. I don't know how this has happened, and I have to say, this is just the beginning of our experiments. That's all I'll say. We are now like full on. We're both hooked on this experimentation. Let me just put this cloth here. I'm brewing dry style. I just want to make sure I've got the cloth available. Okay, here we go. Let's have a smell of these wet leaves. Well, the first thing that hits your nose is a creamy quality that's not in the dry leaf. And it's again, it reminds me of a very British thing, like hot custard, like hot vanilla custard. You know, it reminds me of and I don't mean this in a negative way, it reminds me of school dinners. You know, whenever, when I was a young boy, you'd have school dinners, you'd have like apple crumble and all of these sort of very classic English desserts, and they'd always have vanilla, hot vanilla custard. But instead of an English dessert, it's poured over, again, I'm getting loads of those brown sugars. I'm getting nuts. So imagine pouring it over pecan pie. A really beautiful, dark, high quality, deep muscovado sugar pecan pie with, again, dark rum. It's just so sweet. You just want to dive into this pot. It is the most incredible smell. I cannot tell you how amazing this smell is. And if you're not into HA and you're not into Gushu PuErh, I mean, in a way, it's the most advanced Gushu PuErh and it's the most entry-level Gushu PuErh, because I cannot imagine that there's anything in here that you wouldn't like. Vanilla, custard, pecan pies, dark rums, and those spices. Those spices are coming through. Again, we'll talk about it more in the taste. And of course, I'm starting to get a little bit more of the wood storage note of those casks. I'm getting but it's not wet actually, it's more like dry wood, like an attic sort of smell, but very, 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 very clean, not musty at all, sort of like if you walk into an old building and you're getting some of that antique dried wood in there. Oh, it is just an incredible smell. I wish we had smell-o-vision. Okay, here we go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to brew, again, ramp up the temperature. We want it to be hot. So you can experiment with temperatures. I'm brewing at like boiling point. You could try experimenting with slightly lower to bring out a little bit more thickness in the tea, 95. So play around. You might find that you prefer something a little bit cooler. Here we go. Going to brew for about 20 seconds, and I'm going to pour the first couple of infusions into this glass gong dao bei, and I've got a white cup as well. I wanted to go full Gen Shui for this experience, but I realized that we want to see the color of the liquor as well. I love these towels, super absorbent. So that's probably around, look at the color of that liquor. Again, you can see a lighter infusion. It's got orange in it. It's got like cherry colors in it. Again, maroon colors. Yeah, it's got like a cherry sort of red note to it. Maybe you can see that. Let me just see. Maroons, browns, but I would say that there's a distinct sort of slightly oxidized cherry note to the color of this liquor. Here we go. I'll put it in the white glass for now, white cup for now, so you can see the color. Playground Rendezvous. Cheers, everybody. Texture. Texture is medium thick, and I would probably say thick by this tasting, but I know that the Gen Shui thickens it up a little bit, so I'm just dialing it down a little bit. Medium thick. It's definitely got a medium thick body, soft, lubricating, and then moving to a very refreshing brightness, not so much dryness, but there's a brightness to a bright vaporous quality to it. It reminds me a little bit of Autumn Light, if you've tried that Gushu PuErh, which again is a lighter fermented tea. So the lightness in the fermentation leads to a slightly brighter finish. Yeah, medium thick, soft, refreshing. Right, let's talk about taste. Everything that I've just said before, so you'll see the pictures on this side of me. Everything I've said before stands in the taste. Pecan pies, rums, muscovado, sugars, etc. But now I want to dive a little bit deeper into the spices in this tea. I'm picking up this. It's so complicated, the amount of spices, that I find it very hard to sort of pass them and to split them apart. Certainly a bit of licorice, but again, please don't get scared if you're not into licorice. I'm not somebody who likes licorice that much, but that sweetness in the aftertaste is so pronounced, incredibly sweet aftertaste. So things like licorice, things like fennel. However, it also has other brighter, like I want to say a little bit of hoppy note, but without the bitterness of hops, but a little bit of that sort of bright, mercenal, slightly overripe mango kind of spiciness to it. It's also got a preserved plum quality to it, which is a flavor note which is not common but sought after in a lot of Gushu PuErh, that sort of preserved plum. I wouldn't say it's moving into savory so much, but a little bit more of an adult saline quality to it within the plumminess of it, the dried plums. So if you've ever had one of those Asian preserved plums, it certainly isn't that salty taste that you get in, but the aftertaste of a preserved plum. Super drinkable. Chinese herbs. I tend to always say the same one, angelica root or angelica flowers. So a little bit in that sort of slightly spiky, piquant spiciness, but it's very controlled with all of the sugary, rounded notes of those muscovado sugars and pecan pies. Oh, you know, that combination of all of the different spices in this, this cornucopia of different spices reminds me not just of a Chinese herbal, Chinese herbal dispensary with all of the herbs, but reminds me of some of those herbal liquors. The one that comes to mind is unicum in Hungary. If you've ever had unicum, then you'll know that deep, dark, very herbal, incredibly digestive, and we'll talk about the body sensation in a little bit, but I'll let you know right now, this is an amazing digestive, as most Gushu PuErhs are, but especially this one. It reminds me of those herbal liquors like unicum. Genepi is a little bit, it's darker than Genepi. It reminds me of unicum, which I believe is made with lots of like 30 or 40 different spices from around the world. Maybe it's the kombucha adds a certain sort of internationalization of the herbal notes. Instead of it being just sort of Chinese herbal dispensary notes, it tastes like herbs from around the world. It tastes like you've literally gone around and taken from all continents lots of different herbs and just sort of just allowed them to gently combine and add complexity to this drink. Right, I'm going to go full Gen Shui now for the second infusion. And we'll see if it thickens it up a little bit more. For those of you asking about Gen Shui, we do have Gen Shui pots, but they are sort of stuck on the COVID delayed ocean at the moment. When we get them, I'm not quite sure. But keep your eye out. And if you're on Instagram, keep your eye on Instagram, because there may be a few sort of individual releases of pots. Okay. The full Gen Shui experience on this tea. Although, of course, you don't need it, but if you've got it, why not try it? And I actually have not tried this full Gen Shui experience on this tea yet. Let's see. Right. Ooh, that custard is coming through again. Thickens it up for sure. That custard is coming through, that vanilla custard. Oh, it's just remarkable. Right, let's have a smell of the empty Grand Abbé. Oh, ooh, complicated. The takeaway on this tea is it's eminently drinkable, easy drinking, and will be lovable by I can't imagine many people not liking the taste of this tea. It's sort of universally just delicious. However, it's also extremely complicated. The smell here, it has a sort of, okay, so I'm getting plum syrup, but very cooked down, extremely cooked down plums. I'm getting also some of that dry wood. But you know how dry wood can sometimes almost have a slightly charred quality to it? It's so dried that it doesn't smell burnt, but it has a slightly charred quality. So dried wood, charred dried wood, very, very light char, plum syrup, and yeah, there's a very slight, and I mean extremely slight, but if you try this tea, then see if you can tease this out. There's a slight truffle note to it, but very, very slight. For those of you going, oh, I hate the truffle smell. Very, very, very slight amongst that plum syrup, brown sugars, again, rums, again, unicum. I mean, it's very consistent all the way through. Right, I'm gonna go through at least 3, 4, probably 5 infusions just to give you a better sense of the body sensation. Brewing up in the pot is infusion number 6. This tea is so drinkable. You can just go through infusion after infusion, and before you know it, you will have gone through over 10. I will be conservative here, as we always are with our infusion count, but you're going to get 15 plus, 20 plus potentially infusions, depending on how far into a session you like to go. The finish in my mouth is of the most epic sweetness. And again, that sweetness is like a rum, brown sugar, and sort of fennel seed sweetness. It is immense, but also there is a distinct minty coolness. And we were talking about the refreshing nature of the smell. It has a refreshing nature in the mouth. Minty, like peppermint, dried peppermint coolness in the mouth as well, which I think is glorious in terms of a finish. So sweet and cooling. The body sensation is very digestive, so you can really feel like it's cleansing and clearing. Heating, arising, awakening, slightly drunken, but sort of more in the sort of stimulating, awakening drunkenness. Nothing too heavy, nothing too caffeinated, although probably this will see you through a night of long conversation. So I'm not saying, you know, see this as a low caffeine drink, but yeah, it's sort of woozy but in a, that doesn't make sense, woozy in an awakening way. So it's heating and awakening, and a little bit woozy. What else to say about this tea? Oh, let's take a look at these leaves. After 6 infusions, you can see the color of the liquor is just as dark. Let's take out some of these leaves so that you can see them. They definitely, you can start to see a little hints of, I wouldn't say green so much, but a little bit of a, yeah, touch of very dark khaki in there. So you can see that it is lighter in terms of its fermentation, but the predominance is a sort of like cherry, again, cherry wood brown colored leaves. Very, very good picking. As I said, Bulang, one of our favorite areas. Gushu material, there you go. The playground Rendez-Vous. Certainly the tea that I've been most excited to release, simply because of the journey that we've gone through to get to this stage, and also because of the uniqueness of this tea. But put all of that aside, just on the experience of the session, the taste, the aftertaste, the aroma, the texture, etc. Just on that, even if this was a straight ahead Gushu PuErh, this tea, spoiler alert, is definitely in my top 5 teas of this year. It's going to take something special to pip it off top spot, I'll tell you that right now. Playground Rendez-Vous. If you like your HRs, grab it. If you're new to HRs, grab it. A totally unique twist on Gushu PuErh. That's it, tea heads. Check out our other videos, taste our teas wherever you are in the world by browsing mayleaf.com, and come visit us if you're ever in London. Other than that, I'm Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags. Keep drinking the sublime stuff and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.